Welcome to Inventive Minds Child, Youth, and Family Support Center. We are a not-for-profit organization working with families in their day-to-day parenting by providing workshops and seminars related to pediatric and child development. Inventive Minds provides care in the early years sectors for newborn to age 6, licensed under the Ministry of Education all across Ontario. Inventive Minds carries an elementary school open to international students from junior kindergarten to grade 3. The Inventive Minds Family Center helps families in mediation, arbitration, and parent coordination cases related to family separation and divorce. We support families during and past separation and divorce. Inventive Minds works with court orders to conduct child voice report and parenting courses related to CAS, court, and mediation purposes. To learn more about our services, reach us at inventivekids.com. My name is Rose, the founder of Inventive Minds Family Center.
Thank you so much for joining this Inventive Minds Child, Youth, and Family Support Center workshop hosted by me, Adam Status, your youth development mentor and coach. Today, we have with us Nicole Schwartz. Hey, how you doing?
Hi.
Hi. Nicole is a licensed and registered international board certified lactation consultant and holds an undergraduate degree in biology. She has always had an interest in the human body and how it works. From a young age, she always envisioned herself working with children. Okay,
Yes.
So and I have a whole bunch of questions that are listed here in front of me that I want to make sure we go through, but I'm sure at first you want to at least also give yourself a proper introduction. So please let me allow you to do so.
I am an IBCLC, which stands for International Board Certified Lactation Consultant. So I did lots of specific lactation education, and then I did clinical hours working directly with babies and moms and families. And then I sat for it's an international exam, so I could work anywhere in the world, which is kind of cool. And I became an IBCLC after I had my daughter, actually. So this was a change in career. My struggles with breastfeeding her kind of prompted me to want to do this. I have my own private practice, and I love doing this work. So.
Okay, well, it sounds like you're doing great. So first of all, how your baby attaches to your breast chest during breastfeeding and why it's important, that is something that I would actually like to know, especially as a man. I cannot understand nearly obviously to the level that a woman can. So having a really clear explanation for me, I feel like if I can understand this, then any woman who has this sort of question will definitely understand it as well. So please let us know more about that if you could.
Yeah. So latch, and you really don't hear this word until you have a baby then, and you are then breastfeeding.
Right.
And people are asking, how's your latch? And you're like, what? And so latch means how your baby is attached to you during breastfeeding in order to get milk out.
Okay.
So there can be a great latch, and there can be one that's not so great. And basically, not so great latch can have consequences.
Right.
So we want the baby to have an effective latch and an efficient latch. Effective means they're going to be able to get enough milk for their needs. Efficient means they're not feeding 24 hours a day, right? So, and we want this experience to be pain-free for the person breastfeeding them, because obviously it takes two to breastfeed.
Right.
So, and this will have a direct correlation to how much milk the mom makes then. So latch, we're basically talking about how the baby's attaching to you in order to get the milk out. So.
Right. That makes perfect sense. Okay, fair enough. So, and then if we can go through some details, maybe more oriented specifically towards the importance of having a good latch in itself, what that really looks like, and then of course, what can happen if your baby's latch is less than optimal.
Right. So it's important because we want your baby to get the calories they need to grow and gain weight. And we want them to be able to do it without a lot of extra stress or work, right? So, babies are born with reflexes and this drive to be able to breastfeed. So They do kind of intrinsically know some things, and we want to kind of make sure they're attached optimally to make this happen.
Right.
And then also it needs to be an experience where the mother is not in pain. If the latch is not good, it has consequences then for mom. So, and then like that kind of goes into if it's less than optimal, what can happen.
Right.
So in my practice, I see, the less than optimal, because that's why they come to me. They need help.
Okay.
And, this leads to the baby being frustrated, the mom being frustrated. And then this causes like a lot of anxiety too. When feeding isn't going well, it's anxiety producing for the family. And the baby might not be getting enough milk. So if they're not latched properly, we think they're eating, but maybe they're not getting as much as they need. And so then we see this when we go to weigh them or they go to their pediatrician. And then over time, this can affect how much milk mom is making. And I know this isn't a talk about milk supply, but basically there's supply and demand. So, the baby is the demand and the mom is the supply. So the baby demands milk and then your body makes more milk.
Oh, interesting.
So the more milk you remove, the more your body makes. And so if baby is not taking a full feed or as much as they should, it starts to downregulate your milk supply.
Interesting.
And so over time, you can start making less and less milk and then, get to a place where you're not making enough for your baby.
If you don't use it, you lose it.
Kind of, yeah.
I like that. Now, it almost sounds like if I'm getting this correct, because again, like this, especially as a man, this is really interesting to me because I feel like there's probably some basic things that are perhaps innate that a woman would just kind of feel and know that I would just have no clue of. So I feel like some of my more in-depth questions might be, are just based upon sheer ignorance and lack of understanding. But it almost sounds like there's sort of this capital of supply that that as a woman you'd produce for your baby, and it will kind of cap out at that. And either way, that milk would have to get used somehow. And if it's not being taken from the mom so that cap can kind of stay at its optimal level, then the body will start to, I guess, almost I don't know what the right biological terminology would be, and I imagine but it sounds like almost like the body just sort of would absorb it, and then that capital amount would be lessened and lessened until potentially you just wouldn't be producing anymore. It almost sounds like your body would start to feel as if, well, there's no need to produce this milk at all, so why spend the energy to do that, right? Am I getting this correct?
Yeah. Milk making is takes a lot of energy. And so you actually need an extra 300 to 500 calories a day.
Wow.
When you're breastfeeding. So your body doesn't like to expend energy and waste it, right? So if you are not removing that milk, and some moms are pumping, or if they're having a hard time, they might be pumping. If you're not removing that milk with the baby or the pump, your body's gonna start to slow down production to save energy, and because it thinks that there's not a need for it. So it's kind of use it or lose it. So you need the demand in order to make more of the supply.
It's just sheer economics.
Yeah. No one's ever said that, but
it really is. Okay, cool. So if you could, was there anything else specifically that you wanted to that you wanted to talk about in terms of latch being less optimal? Or
I think that's good.
Cool. Okay, great. So if you could, what does a good latch look and feel like?
So I want to say this before we talk about this. Sometimes it looks good, but it's not good. So we're talking about it looking good, but there's also how does it feel, and what is happening. So sometimes it looks good from the outside, but inside, something is off with the baby's tongue or the swallowing or something like that. So this is just kind of a starting point, what you're kind of looking for. So we want the baby to be close to you when breastfeeding so that their chin can be touching your breast. And that kind of, that pressure on their chin and their cheeks kind of triggers them to open their mouth. So it's kind of triggering their rooting reflex. And babies can't see very well, right? They can see like 6 inches, right? So we need to kind of get things close to them so that they can know what to do.
Right.
So we want them very close to you. We want their mouth open super wide. And I'm talking like a 140-degree angle. So when you're looking, yeah, it's very wide.
Right.
And it's called breastfeeding because we need them to get breast tissue in their mouth, not just the nipple.
Right.
And when they're just feeding on the tip there, that's when things are bad for mom.
Right.
It does not feel good. And then babies pinching off the milk ducts too. So they're not going to get as much.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So wide open mouth. Their lips should be kind of flanged out.
Okay.
We don't want their lips
just opened completely.
Yeah, kind of like a fish face. We don't want their lips tucked in.
Right. Okay.
The cheeks should look full and round. If you see any dimpling or it looks like the baby's suctioning in,
okay,
that means there's something off. Something's not right.
Okay. Where are the ducts exactly located? So that way, because I imagine, because it sounds like, and I don't mean to interrupt you, because I'm just trying to picture this myself too. So if it's just on the very tip, and you're saying that that cuts off the ducts. Yeah. I think if a woman really understands fully, just to make sure, if there's any women that are listening that are not sure exactly where the duct's located, it sounds like the mouth has to be around that area, right?
Well, the milk's made, so think about some grapes, right? A bunch of grapes. The milk is made in the milk making cells, the alveoli, and those would be the grapes. And then the stems are kind of the ducts. The ducts go from those cells all the way down into the nipple. Okay. And so it's not like a straight path. They could be curving and then they converge into to each other. So mom has like a certain amount of nipple pores in her nipple. Okay. But the ducts are coming down into there. So if you just think about a hose, if you go and pinch it off, what happens?
Yeah, of course, you're not going to get the water out.
Right. The water stops flowing. So, but you could pinch it a little and still get a little coming through. Right. And that wouldn't be
sufficient
enough.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of how
it's really got to be like the wider the mouth, the better, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that way the nipple is getting back far enough in baby's mouth that it's not being pinched, rubbed.
Gotcha.
The nipple really is just in there to let the milk out and kind of trigger the baby to start sucking.
Okay.
It's not used like a straw.
So it's more the tissue around, and the less sucking on any part of the nipple, the better. Right.
Baby's creating suction, but it's the compression too. So there's negative and positive pressure going on.
And that's also where the pressure from their chin and surrounding mouth area against the breast actually helps to force the milk out more easily too, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's all very important for a latch. Like their entire, I always say babies don't just eat with their mouth. Like it's kind of a whole body thing. Like their body needs to be in proper alignment. They need to feel secure in space too. Think about you trying to sit like on the edge of like a, I don't know, at the park, one of those things you balance on while you're eating. You don't feel stable. It's hard to eat.
Those are teeter-totters. Those are what those are called, right? I hear what you're saying.
I couldn't think of the word.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. No, it makes perfect sense.
So the tongue, their tongue also is really important. Their tongue moves in a wave-like motion and kind of gets the milk out. So their tongue actually comes all the way extended out over their bottom gum line.
Right.
And that is important too.
Okay.
So that if you feel like they're biting you, then that means their tongue is not protecting you.
Right.
So.
Okay. So was there anything else in terms of what a good latch looks and feels like that you wanted to make sure that you touched upon before I get to my next question?
Just about swallowing. So this is something I often talk to new parents about, the difference between act like nutritive sucking where they're getting milk and non-nutritive, and like understanding. I always show them like that's your baby swallowing, and this is suckling, but they're not swallowing.
Right.
Because sometimes parents think they're eating, but they're really not. They're just suckling and they're not actually getting milk down their throat.
Okay.
So when you can hear a baby swallow, and it makes like a k, k. It's like the soft little k sound.
Okay.
And then you'll also see their lower jaw kind of drop and hang down for a second.
Right.
So looking for swallowing is really important.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like there's so many things that you have to be aware of as a new mom when it comes to something like this, which is obviously a multiple day activity. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And there's so many like little fine details that you could definitely, I would imagine as a new mom, you would totally, to no fault of your own, you could just easily overlook and be completely unaware of that. Having this education, having this knowledge is so important because for obvious reasons. I mean, this is your baby's only source of energy and food for a while. So if it's not happening effectively, then that could be quite detrimental. So having the full awareness and education on all these little details, it would make a massive difference. Yeah, definitely, I can see that. Cool. So interesting. Now, is it okay if I move on to my next question?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Cool. So please tell me, what are the differences between baby-led and parent-led latching?
Yeah. So baby-led kind of means, generally it means you're in a more, mom's laid back more and reclined back.
Okay.
I think most of the time when we think about latching our baby, we think about parent-led, where the mother's kind of guiding the baby more. And baby-led it can also be called biological nurturing. Okay. And baby is like fully prone on you. So their entire body is on mom's body. Okay. And then you kind of let them just hang out there. And this helps them kind of tap into their reflexes and their feeding reflexes and instincts. Okay. So if you have a healthy full-term baby and right after birth, they put them on your chest, a lot of babies will, if left there long enough, self-attach without mom doing anything. And they're born with the ability to do the things to allow them to do that. Cool. And you can do this type of attachment more than just right after birth. Holding your baby skin to skin, kind of letting them kind of attach themselves, just putting them in that general vicinity. Okay. But
you don't really have to like, you're not really like necessarily forcing their head or their mouth certain way or their body. You're just sort of putting them there, letting them be in the general area, and then just allowing them time to kind of get themselves even in the exact right position for them that's comfortable, and finding their own way, essentially.
Yeah,
Am I getting that right?
They're born with the ability to root and suck, and they use there's 20 different reflexes we know of that they used for feeding.
Interesting.
So if you have a healthy full-term baby, then they should be able to kind of do this.
Like, and also just because, so I'm picturing this correctly, and getting a full idea of this, like, and also for a mom that might be potentially concerned if they're just sort of putting their baby down on them, allowing their baby the chance to kind of figure out exactly what they need to do to get themselves in the right position, and everything. Like, I mean, I don't know if this is a fair question or not, and you'll tell me, but what's sort of the time period, give or take? Is there like sort of an average time it takes? Because I would think that if I'm just trying to picture myself, if I was a mom, I'm breastfeeding, I have my child on me, I have them in the general vicinity, I'm allowing them a chance to kind of figure out exactly where they need to be, what they need to do. And, I'm sitting there maybe for, I don't know, like 10 minutes, and my baby's not really getting there. Maybe 10 minutes is probably a really long time, but I'm just saying, like, there's some time that passes, I might get kind of nervous and be like, oh my goodness, like I wanted like kind of, I don't know if force is the right way, but give a lot more guidance. So I guess sort of a two-part more in-depth question to this is there a time period, give or take, that I should feel comfortable with to allow my baby to figure this out? Two, if it is taking, longer than that time period, is there something that I should be doing to give a little bit more guidance?
Yeah. So This is just like one approach. You don't have to do this every time. And obviously, if baby is starving, like, so baby's crying, which is the latest hunger cue. If baby's crying, they're very hungry.
Right.
This might not be the time to do that, right? But you might want to help guide them, and you can still be in a laid back position, but offer some assistance.
Okay.
But if you are just hanging out with your baby, maybe watching Netflix or taking a nap, and you're holding your baby skin to skin, and they start to give you early feeding cues, you can let them kind of see if they'll self-attach. So I guess it depends on the situation and like
Gotcha.
what's going on.
Okay.
But obviously that's not practical all the time, especially if you're out and about.
Yeah.
Most mothers do the parent led, where you're, holding your baby in a cradle hold like this, or like cross cradle. And you're more guiding them.
Right.
So you're allowing them still to open their mouth and kind of like root for the breast, but then you're kind of helping them on. And that's by moving their body towards you, or holding your breast, help to get it in their mouth. And so that's typically what we think about when we think about latching. Mom is kind of leading it.
Right.
And then, you mentioned this before, but you never want to push on a baby's head when they're eating. They have to, and I always use this analogy, when you take a drink from your glass, what do? You tilt your head back, right? So their chin if their chin is on their chest and you're pushing back on their head, their instinct is to push back like this.
Right.
Like you wouldn't want somebody pushing on your head when you're eating.
Right.
And they're the same way. So even in mother-led latching, mom is supporting their neck and their back, but allowing them to kind of adjust their head, so they can breathe and kind of make adjustments.
Right. So their head really should be in a more upward position, shouldn't be down at all.
Right. We want their throat open for easy swallowing and breathing.
So be really aware of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a big thing I often see in the beginning. Just having your baby up too high so that they're like this trying to drink.
Right, which is going to be pretty much impossible.
You cannot, it's really difficult to swallow. You can try it yourself. But I wouldn't, nobody ever goes like this and tries to drink.
Of course, that makes sense. Now, I mean, are there sort of benefits to one approach over the other, or it's okay, it doesn't really make a difference either way? Is there sort of advantages for your child in terms of their development for one approach over the other?
I mean, being on their belly is always good. And it helps them. It's kind of tummy time too for them, and helping them get head and neck control. But obviously that's not practical all the time unless you're at home and able to kind of be in a comfortable spot with your baby. So a combination is good, but mostly I say do what works well for you and your baby. Okay. So whatever
if you always do parent-led breastfeeding, that's okay if that's all you can really do. If you just don't have the ability to do
if that's working for you, then
that's fine.
That's good. Whatever way you and your baby are comfortable and doing well. So
cool. Okay.
It's just an option. And sometimes when babies are having a hard time, I suggest the baby led just to kind of get them to tap into their kind of feeding reflexes.
Right. Okay, cool.
But usually after the newborn stage, there's less of that happening, and it's more, you're not as technical. Once you've gotten the hang of it and your baby has head and neck control, it's less technical than all this we're talking about. It just kind of happens and you don't even think about it.
Right. And I guess also you've been doing it for like quite a long time, many, many, many times. Like practice makes perfect, like anything else. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. So I have my next question. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So what are some ways to improve your baby's latch, and what can you do if your baby's latch isn't improving?
So ways to improve your baby's latch are all the things we kind of talked about, looking for those things. If you're doing usually if a baby's having a hard time, we'll talk about the mother-led latching, kind of making sure your baby's close to you, making sure your nipple is lined up kind of here with their lip.
Oh, okay.
We don't want it, again, we don't want their chin on their chest.
Right. Because if it's up here, then it forces their
Yeah.
their head up. Okay.
And kind of tilt back. Feeding your baby at their early hunger cues. So I always talk to parents about, do you know when your baby's hungry? You know, what are the signs that your baby's hungry? And catching those earlier hunger cues. You think about, like, if you're starving and like your blood sugar starts to drop, how you can't focus. And so if a baby's crying, that means you've missed all their early hunger cues. It's hard to latch a crying baby because when they're crying, their tongue goes up.
Right.
So we need their tongue to be down. So usually if they're hysterical, we have to kind of calm them down first. And a good way to do that is like letting them, if they're using a pacifier, let them suck on a pacifier, let them suck on your clean finger. Sucking helps kind of calm them down enough so that you can get them to regulate and latch.
Okay.
And then making sure you're comfortable also. You know, a lot of moms are hunching over, their shoulders hurt, you know, they're trying everything to get their baby to latch. They forget about their own posture and comfort.
Right.
So making sure you're comfortable kind of sitting back, that your body's supported. So if you need pillows to help hold up your hands and things like that, you're doing that.
Right.
And then I always tell moms, if it's hurting, unlatch and try again.
Okay.
So we never want to like white knuckle through it, the pain.
Right.
Because you're just damaging your nipples, your breasts.
Right.
And your baby's not getting a good latch at that point.
Right. And not
if it's hurting.
correctly.
Yeah.
Okay, that's an obvious, clear sign that it's not good for either one of you.
Yes.
And I can see that as a mom, because you go that nurturing instinct, you're gonna be like, well, it hurts me, but whatever, like it doesn't matter.
But they're on there, so I'm gonna just get through it, right?
Yeah, because like ultimately, what matters most of all, you're gonna put your child first. You want, obviously, you're gonna want your child to feed, and you just might think in your head, well, they're feeding, and that's really all that matters is them getting the nutrients they need. So who cares how I feel? But the feeling that you have translates to the level of how well your child is feeding. So just be aware of that. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, great. And was there anything else that you wanted to make sure we touched upon? Because I know you talked about already. We've talked about a lot of ideas when it comes to improving the latch. Some ideas of what you can do if your baby's latch isn't improving. But is there anything else you want to make sure that we cover with that? Because I know there's quite a bit that you have.
I guess. Oops, I went the wrong way on my slide. So I guess if things are not getting better, or you know you are constantly in pain, or your baby seems not happy after feeding, like they're still seeming hungry, or they're feeding like every hour and they always seem hungry. Then at that point, and you've done all the things to try to correct what you think's going on, at that point, get help. Like go see a lactation consultant. That's why we're
talk
here.
To you.
Yeah. Or, you know, there's peer support. There's Latch League, or I don't know, in Canada, I'm in the US. So there's Baby Cafe. There's just places where you can find peer support too.
Cool.
But also it's important to get professional help if like things aren't improving. And
if you talk to your family doctor, I'm sure they're going to have somebody they can refer you to as well. I would imagine. I would hope so.
Yeah, seeing your pediatrician, just even calling them. Do you have a lactation consultant that you know?
And that might be just a question you ask right from the get-go too.
Oh yeah, I mean, I always say when you're pregnant, like find some in your area, just so you have somebody to call because those first, couple days, especially once you leave the hospital, if you birth in a hospital, you get home and it's like, okay, they let me home with this little baby, and what am I doing?
It's like, okay, here, just figure it out, go.
So having somebody to call for support, like even if you're not sure if it's going well, like somebody can see you and just like give you some pointers, or just even tell you, yes, you're doing great. Like just having
Right.
that reassurance.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
But in the meantime, you want to obviously keep feeding your baby. So if breastfeeding is not working, then you need to feed your baby another way. And that could be temporarily bottles or, whatever means, syringe.
But there's a lot of research, if I'm correct in saying so, that shows that breastfeeding is way more important if you can do it for your baby's development compared to other methods of feeding, if I'm correct in saying so. I mean, I would imagine you would know more than me about this, but I know I've heard that quite a bit. And that might be something that new moms and new dads are wondering about.
Yeah, breastfeeding has benefits for mom and baby, nutritionally and just, for long-term health. But if you have to supplement your baby for whatever reason, it's always more important that your baby's fed, right? So,
well, yeah, that goes without saying.
No,
sure. Yeah,
no, but
you don't have a starving baby.
I don't like,
right.
It is beneficial, but like you have to make that choice too.
Sure.
So, if you temporarily have to do something else until you get the help you need to work on those issues, then you're not a terrible parent. Like that's all I just want to get across.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I like that you said that.
A lot of women, moms, dads, they blame themselves if breastfeeding isn't going well. Right. But sometimes it's because we don't give them the tools they need to be successful. And, just like I asked you before we came on live, like how much do you really know about breastfeeding? We don't see women breastfeeding really anymore. Like I rarely see somebody breastfeeding. And so it's like, it is kind of a learned behavior too. So I think a lot of us we don't have the support we need. And then we automatically blame ourselves, right? Because we want the best for our child.
Sure. Yeah, I like that you said that, I mean, if you just are having trouble with it, and it's just not working for you, and you're maybe even having trouble finding somebody that knows a lot about this, it's educated like this, such as yourself, obviously you want your child to be fed. Obviously that's first priority. So if you have to use an alternative method for the time being, try not to stress out about it and worry about it or feel like because you're just not sure what's wrong and why it's not working, to, get down on yourself about it or be hard on yourself about it. There's so many things that you've mentioned during this that could so easily be overlooked by anybody, especially if it's your first time doing it. Yeah. So, just to go easy on yourself and just remember that the first priority ultimately is making sure your baby's fed one way or the other. So, you do your best and all will be good. Yeah. And I like the idea of just providing that reassurance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. So next question.
Yes.
Okay. So what are some reasons why a latch would be difficult?
So this goes into like wanting to blame ourselves first. But sometimes it's things that are not within our control. If baby had a particularly difficult birth, like a long labor, or they were breech, or like just they had to be in the NICU or something, they just might be recovering from that. They might have tightness somewhere in their body. They might have something going on in their mouth, like a tongue tie or a lip tie, or just their tongue isn't quite working the way it should, some like oral dysfunction. So there's other, like if you've tried to fix these things, this goes back to like kind of getting help, because then if things are not improving with the tricks you're trying or the tips you've gotten, then maybe something else is going on and somebody needs to kind of look in that. And then sometimes if mom has low milk supply, that can be a factor for baby not breastfeeding well, just because they're not getting enough milk. And so they're getting frustrated at the breast, or they're not gaining weight. So sometimes we need to figure out really what's going on.
And the regular checkups that you have with your pediatrician are obviously going to be really important. to help make
Yes.
sure that everything is going as it should. Yeah.
Watching diaper output, knowing how much they should be peeing and pooping is important for knowing that they're getting enough milk. Definitely the first couple weeks, going to those regular checkups with your pediatrician to make sure your baby's on track. Also discussing any issues you're having with feeding there. And so hopefully they can help get you support that you need.
Okay, cool. Oh, somebody just asked a really good question here. What is considered low milk supply?
So in the beginning, breastfed babies should be gaining about an ounce a day. They will initially lose some weight after birth, and then we want them back to their birth weight by 10 to 14 days. If your baby is not gaining that 1-ish ounce a day, then your supply might be low. Babies around 6 weeks, breastfed babies take 24 to 32 ounces a day. So that is kind of what we're looking for mom to produce. And babies can continue to take that much until about 6 months. 24 to 32 ounces is like a full supply.
That's really good. I think we got through a lot of details about this. I know that there's probably so much more to know. Thank you for joining this Inventive Minds Child, Youth, and Family Support Center workshop. Do visit www.inventivekids.com, kids with a Z.com, to learn more about the many other workshops available coming up soon. You can connect with Inventive Minds via email at inventivekids, again with a Z, at gmail.com for any parenting challenges so their professional team can connect with you. Check out a replay of this and many of our other podcasts by searching Inventive Kids on YouTube and the Parent Toolbox on Spotify. And join the Parent Toolbox Facebook community group today by searching the Parent Toolbox on Facebook. And we look forward to seeing you all again very, very soon. Thank you, Nicole. That was great. That was so much fun.
Thank you.